Cheers, y'all.
Well.
That sounds like a party right
Welcome,
there.
ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza known internationally
Hi,
as
Mom.
the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And welcome, my friends, to show number 278. Officially now,
Slightly over halfway to
300. Yeah,
yes.
we're getting there. We are definitely getting there. Putting together plans actually for the 300th episode. So I'm thinking we're just going to do the 200th/300th episode.
That makes it the 500th episode.
Well, and then we're halfway to 500. So, but we didn't get to really do. I mean, we did an episode number 200, but we didn't get to do the extravaganza that we wanted because it was right in the middle of lockdown that it hit. And back on the 100th show, of course, we invited everyone who had ever been a guest on the show at any time to join us.
That
and of
was
course,
ridiculous.
Not everybody made it, but a whole bunch of people did. They all brought bottles and cans and cigars, and we had quite a time. So we were thinking, well, 200 would be a bigger deal, and then we didn't really get to do it. So this will be once we get there, and I think it happens in September. I was looking at the calendar. In September, we will have our 200th/300th episode.
Well, at least it'd be nice and warm outside.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be perfect. Actually, we do the show in Houston, Texas. September is one of the greatest months of the year weather-wise, so it's awesome. So, anyway, welcome to number 278. Today we will be talking about how it is always time for Guinness, and we'll be talking about 8 extraordinary cigars. And we want to welcome our very special guest, Mr. David Schroeder, who is with Guinness. David, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be in sunny Houston. I got off the plane about 2 hours ago, and it's just really nice weather today. So I'm stoked to have these beers.
Yeah, it really is. We say this a lot on the show, but this is the time of year that people visit Houston and they go, "Oh, honey, it's so much nicer here than it is up in Buffalo. Let's move here." And so then they move here by about, say, May. And 2 months later, they're in hell.
They're just walking around with a WTF bubble above their head.
That's exactly
sweating.
right. That's exactly right. So anyway, but you've lived in Texas before, so you know a little bit about that, right?
Yes, about 3.5 years ago, I moved from Houston to Denver. I was in Houston for a while. Before that, I was in Austin. So it feels like, I know it's cliche to say, but it feels like home every time I come here because I have so many friends and people that live down here, and Houston particularly, the food is always so awesome every time I come here.
Have to love the cuisine here of any kind.
Anything you want.
Whether you want
get.
Viet Cajun crawfish or just like the
we've got all
greatest
of that.
Tex-Mex ever, you can get it all here. So
Yeah, it's awesome here.
It's absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you for coming in. We, of course, inquired about having Mr. Schroeder come in and do our show on St. Patrick's Day, and he was very kind. He didn't laugh too hard. But Guinness, of course, keeps very, very busy on St. Patrick's Day. I know this from having spent a number of years in radio and doing all these crazy promotions, but I always thought Guinness was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to assume St. Patrick's Day is your biggest single sales day of the year, right?
It is,
but
yeah.
probably by a pretty wide margin.
We sell about 15% of our yearly sales in the month of March, and if you think about that's really the first 17 days.
Makes sense, yeah.
You're exactly right. Like, I get crazy requests all over. I'm based in Denver, but I cover Texas, cover all the way out into California and up to Washington and Alaska. So it's just, it runs the gamut of requests. People, suddenly we're on everybody's mind.
Right,
you know?
exactly. Everybody's like, hey, St. Patrick's Day, Guinness.
Yeah. I mean, we sell about 85% of our total global volume in the continent of Africa with one of the beers we're going to try here today. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a cold weather beer, but I do like to think about it in, say my January, February, March is so busy that I would love to come back around September
Right.
and be talking about Guinness and stout season right when you get that little chill in there. Not here necessarily. But.
Well, and a number of years back, or it may have even predated that. I became aware of it a number of years back, again, doing radio promotions with Guinness. And these guys are brilliant. they dreamed up a non-existent holiday.
I love it.
Called Halfway to St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's awesome. Everybody goes woo and drinks Guinness and Irish whiskey, and it's like I'm like, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
We have a rep here that works for us. One of my favorite people that I work with, named Macy, and she does it not just on September 17th. She does it on every 17th of the month. She calls it St. Practice Day.
St. Practice
But
Day.
September,
St. Practice Day. I love it.
there is in the month of September, particularly in 1 week in September, there's a whole slew. I mean, we're a 270-year-old brewery,
Right,
so there's going to be dates that come and kind of cluster together. But there is a weird week in September where all these crazy things happen. Like there's halfway to St. Patrick's Day, which is obviously, like you said, it's kind of marketing we kind of made up. But also Arthur Guinness, as the founder's birthday, is right around that same time. September 21st or 22nd. It's not exactly clear which day. First Guinness draft ever poured in the United States was poured at famous bar department store in St. Louis, Missouri, a place I used to live. And there's one other one, I can't remember what it is, but it's amazing how it all just kind of comes in that 1 week in September. For me personally, like I said, not only because I'm busy in January, February, particularly first month of March, I just like stout season, to think of stout season in terms of like when it first gets chilly outside. That's when you start thinking dark beer.
Heavier, darker beers, sure.
What is wrong with you people?
This is.
I love
I knew you were going to jump
stouts
in
and
here.
porters all year
Year-round.
long.
Yes.
I go float the river and I drink stouts and porters. I have no problems with this. I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah.
A lot of people do have a misconception about, Guinness is not a heavy filling stout. It's a very easy drinking stout, and it's one thing. A lot of people see the color of the beer and they think, I'm afraid of dark beers. Well, you don't have to be afraid of Guinness, that's for sure, because
No.
it is very, very easy to drink. I as you could probably tell by our halfway to 300 things, we play a little fast and loose with math here on Smokin' and Toastin'. So I thought we'd just declare today 1/100th of the way to St. Patrick's Day, and we would celebrate appropriately
Cilantro.
with Guinness.
Cheers.
Very, very nice. Also, I have to thank you, as on behalf of your company, for bringing some, because I also lived in St. Louis for several years.
Oh, cool.
For bringing some beer history to St. Louis that does not involve the words Anheuser or Busch. And that's a really, really nice thing that you did. And, today St. Louis is home to a number of really great, very respectable craft breweries as well. But
Urban Chestnut.
But yes, I remember back in the day when I lived there, it was all about those Clydesdales, man. It was all Anheuser-Busch all the time. If you went into a bar there and had the audacity to order a Miller, you could actually get thrown out of the bar. I'm not kidding. It's kind of like the soup Nazi on Seinfeld. No beer for you.
So I could go. My whole family's from Missouri, and so I love history. I love beer too, so beer history makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I could go off forever about beer history in St. Louis. One of my favorite. You go there and it's one of these old brick cities. It's kind of like Chicago or Detroit, and you've got a lot of exposed red brick and all the architecture there. Right across from Anheuser-Busch is an old brewery that before Prohibition was bigger than Anheuser-Busch. It's called the Lemp Brewery.
The Lemp Brewery. I've been there.
And it's like you're walking in ancient ruins because there's like 27 buildings there, and ones where you can see where they used to brew.
Yeah.
And it's literally, you look over the highway and that's where Anheuser-Busch is.
Right.
So, yeah, I actually ran a beer program in St. Louis at a restaurant once, and I don't know if many people know the story about where Budweiser got their name from, but there was a city in Czech Republic called Budějovice, and when you say that in German, the Germanization of that word, it's Budweiser. So it was a town in Czech Republic. Here in the United States, they're not allowed, the beer from that city is not allowed to call themselves Budweiser because they lost to Budweiser.
Of course.
But they predate Budweiser, and over there, if you go over there and buy a Budweiser, it's a totally different beer.
They can sell it there in their own country.
And Budweiser can't. They have to call it something else over there.
That's great.
And so, it's a really good Czech Pilsner. And so I would, in St. Louis, I put it on draft. The first person in the state to put that on draft.
That's brilliant.
And I would sell it as Budweiser. So if people came in and ordered a Budweiser, it'd be the best tasting Budweiser they ever had.
I love that. See, this is the kind of beer history that is so fascinating and interesting to hear about. I've been to the Limp Brewery actually, and to the Limp Mansion, which is now turned into a bed and breakfast and a restaurant, and the food's pretty good too. It's supposed to be haunted. They'll tell you great stories about it being haunted.
It's a little spooky in there.
Yeah, it is kind of.
I've never been there. Me and my wife have been talking about taking a vacation to the Open Gate Brewery though for a weekend.
Yeah, that could be fun. That could be fun.
So I don't want to blame a major possible advertiser someday.
If you're talking about Anheuser-Busch, trust me.
Not
if they've ever listened to the program, they will not be advertising.
No,
Smoking and Justin.
But I did have a case here that was supposed to have some beer from the Open Gate Brewery, and I'm bummed that it didn't get here in time. The Open Gate Brewery, for anybody who doesn't know, is a brewery that we built 3 or 4 years ago in Baltimore, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a facility there that used to be. It's actually the first distillery that opened back up after Prohibition, and we had that facility. It was aging liquor. So Captain Morgan, for instance, owned by Diageo, which also owns Guinness, they would age barrels of Captain Morgan there. We had the facility, and rather than doing a new build, we've kind of found all these connections to the city of Baltimore and reasons why it was really ripe for a Guinness presence. So we opened that brewery, and the brewing team that they recruited there is that's the coolest part of it.
And some of the stuff coming out of there, like every time I see a new Guinness thing, I try it and I haven't been disappointed at all.
Yeah.
They do a really good job out there. I mean, the brewers deserve all the credit. There's a guy named Peter Weens who formerly used to live in St. Louis out of Anheuser-Busch, but also Stone. Sean Brennan, that was formerly of Jolly Pumpkin. Mm-hmm. So there's this cool kind of connection where for generations we shipped our beer all around the world in wooden barrels, obviously for utility, not for flavor. And then now, metal came about, and that was more stable and better for the product at that time. And now we're putting things in barrels for the flavor.
On purpose, right?
On purpose,
exactly.
yeah. So that's what a lot of the stuff we're doing out there is
and
for.
Again, we want to thank you for basically rescuing a city when it comes to beer, because I've lived everywhere. I've also lived in Maryland. And thank God there's something being brewed there besides Natty Boh, because that is some nasty, nasty stuff. They have a great logo, and I love the sign when you're driving into Baltimore. The big lighted neon sign with the guy's winking eye. But the beer. Let's put it this way, Ian. It makes Montucky cold snack seem kind of appetizing. That's how bad Natty Boh is. So,
but they're proud of it there.
Oh, they
they're
are.
So proud of it.
It's like a city pride thing. So
yeah.
I'm glad you're giving them something else to be proud of that comes out of Baltimore. Listen, Baltimore they got a tough time as a city. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there that it's difficult for the people who live there to be proud of. But they can be, proud of the Ravens, and they can be proud of the Orioles, and they're already proud of Natty Boh. Now you've given them some good beer to be proud of. So that's.
And talk about another good food city. We talked about Houston. St. Louis is an awesome food city for its size. It doesn't make any sense why it has such good food there. And Baltimore's another one of those too.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The Baltimore food scene is not bad at all.
Yeah, and they have and they really, and like the Natty Boh thing, they're prideful of it. They're really
totally.
It's
they
really,
own it.
But also their food, and also
kind of like we do here with Lone Star.
Yes,
it's kind of the same way.
Yep.
So
it's weird how that happens.
It's at least drinkable.
Absolutely, I'll have if it's cold
Lone Star.
I'll take a Lone Star.
I'm pretty sure
absolutely.
Natty Boh and Lone Star are the same company. It's all Pabst.
Oh, is it really? I don't know if I even knew that.
98% sure.
Well,
yeah. They got the grip on hipster beers all across the country.
I guess they do, and they didn't have to even really brew great beer to do it. So it's a pretty good deal on their part. Well, it's been an interesting week for me, Ian. I've been pretty busy. I'm going to assume that you have as well, because you and I we're missing each other on text and phone calls this week. But can only assume that you had the opportunity to smoke something interesting.
Well, I did. I sat out on my patio this morning and pulled a cigar out of my humidor, and lo and behold, I have a review for you.
Oh, awesome.
So I pulled out a HVC Pen Caliente.
That's easy for you to say.
So I reviewed one of the HVC cigars actually a few months back. It was called the Hot Cakes, and Pen Caliente is basically the same thing.
Okay,
except for it's a different blend. So this is the Robusto 5x50 that I smoked. It has a Nicaraguan Criollo wrapper. It's actually a Nicaraguan Puro, but it has the Criollo wrapper on. It's really nice. The appearance on this cigar. Did I send you pictures? I did, didn't I? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So the appearance on it is kind of cinnamon brown in color, leathery and veiny wrapper on it, firm with some soft spots overall, and with a single HVC band. It says Pen Caliente. That was not the most interesting cigar to look at, but nice. The pre-light sniff on this, pleasant, earthy kind of smells, wood, fresh cut hay, nutty smells, some spice. The pre-light draw, I used a clip on this. It had kind of a tight draw to it. I got some fresh cut hay, rich earth, slight chocolatey and spicy notes in it. When I lit it up, it was a coffee bomb.
Ooh, nice.
Not a Nicaraguan pepper blast, but a coffee bomb right off the front. Woody, fermented hay, chocolate, and cinnamon right off the top. White pepper in the background. Retrohale was peppery and leathery with some wood notes backing that up. The first third of this, nutty and woody. The draw opened up a bit by this time, and it was quite smokable. The pepper becomes a little more present. Underlying chocolate sweetness and cinnamon lend this kind of a holiday spice vibe to it. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Big fluffy smoke. Retrohale is chocolate and pepper. Flaky ash, perfect burn. As the first picture he probably put up there has the ash sitting right next to it that fell right as I was taking the picture. Taking the picture? That's easy for me to say. The second third of this, pepper remains consistent. Coffee trades off with wood and leather as the underlying chocolate and cinnamon support the flavor profile. The nutty notes weave in and out, along with a ghosty mintiness. Just kind of appeared here and there and went boo.
Mintiness.
Yeah, it wasn't there the whole time. It just every once in a while I was like, oh, here's a little bit of mint.
You're a very poetic man.
There's a little bit of mint over there. So it's a ghostly mintiness that appears and disappears on some unfathomable schedule. Retro, see, I went even further with that.
You did. I'm very impressed. I'm telling you.
Retro Hills, wood and leather with a kiss of cinnamon, flaky ash, good burn. It got a little bit crooked on the second third of it, but not enough to attend it or even think twice about it. Just not razor straight like the first third was. The last third is baking spices, wood, and nutty flavors of the theme here. Medium strength overall, leathery, earthy chocolate, and ghostly mint still intertwined regularly. I suspect this will go well with whiskey. I was thinking something like Wild Turkey, probably something a little sweet. The retro is woody, nutty, chocolate and cinnamon, flaky ash, perfect burn for the last third. This cigar is $6-ish, $6.50. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I was running out the door by the time I got to the end of this. So I'm going to give it a 5.5.
Okay.
It's pretty good. It's right up there with anything you pay $6 to $8 with, and I wouldn't have any trouble paying anywhere in there for it.
David, on our sort of sliding scale, well, it's not really a sliding scale, but on our 1 to 10 scale that we call price to quality, when we talk about cigars, basically, if we rate something a 5, it means you get exactly what you paid for.
Gotcha.
So if something's 5.5, it means, yeah, you know what? Felt like it was worth even a little bit more than the asking price. And, of course, that means that the more expensive the cigar, the harder it is to get above a 5.
Wow,
because
that's awesome.
you might be smoking a $15 cigar and you go, well, that was good and it might have been worth 15, but I sure don't want to pay 20. Sure wouldn't want to pay 20.
Yeah,
for
well, a
it,
$15 cigar should be fabulous.
Yeah, it really should.
It should be
So a 5
$15
would be a great rating. And then, of course, there was the time when Ian reviewed a Black and Mild, and it got, I think, what did you give it? A 9?
A 9.
He gave it a 9 simply because the enjoyment he got out of it, based on the price being 99 cents.
Less, like 87 cents or something like that.
So it's like, okay, well, that would be a place where it's punching above its weight class a little bit.
I gotta say, that is like probably one of the best rating systems I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
Well, we like to let people know when they come on, because if we say a 5, you may say, well, is that?
Yeah, I was thinking, what's
is
it
that
out
a
of
good-
7? Or?
Is that a good rating? So, I had a cigar that I haven't had one of in quite some time. This week, I smoked a Rocky Patel sun-grown Robusto.
Oh, I
Now,
like the Rocky Patel sun-grown.
Now, the sun-grown Maduro is the one that gets a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
It has had really stellar ratings in the cigar magazines and stuff. But it was preceded by the Rocky Patel sun-grown, just the natural. In addition to being one of the more prominent crusaders for the cigar industry, Rocky Patel's got a line of cigars that has grown really large over the years. So there's a number of different options for you to choose from when it's time to smoke a Rocky. And with all the recent and new releases that he's put out, it can be easy to lose sight of some of the other fabulous blends that are
Some
in
of
the
the older
portfolio.
blends that have been more standard.
Yeah. So ergo, the Rocky Patel sun-grown. And I'm congratulating myself because I was wondering if I could work the word ergo into the show this week.
Nicely done.
And I've done it. The sun-grown Robusto features a nice, mostly smooth wrapper and a double red band. Its filler tobacco is aged for 7 years. It's a blend of Nicaraguan, Brazilian, and Dominican tobacco. They use a Nicaraguan binder, and it's all wrapped in a 5-year aged Ecuadorian sun-grown Sumatra wrapper. This is the natural sun-grown, again, from Rocky, not the sun-grown Maduro. There were nutty notes and plenty of earth on the pre-light, and I used a punch, and then I brought fire into the equation. The first puffs brought a kind of a variant on the Nicaraguan pepper blast. And since it was a variant, I won't thrill you with my bad Barry Gibb impression and sing the Nicaraguan pepper blast jingle that I'm going to continue to sing until you write one, and we actually have.
April's been a busy month.
Yeah, I can tell. But since it was a variant, I'll give you a break this week. My Barry Gibb impression is not good. Anyway, the Nicaraguan pepper blast, it was there, but it was a kind of a sweetness that traveled along with the pepper that I thought it made it really interesting, different from your standard NPB at the very least. The nutty note I had noticed on the pre-light was definitely a part of the initial flavor profile. Roasted peanuts was what it seemed like to me, or maybe even or like a really, really good peanut butter. You know when you buy the really good expensive peanut butter and it just smells like roasted peanuts? It was that kind of a vibe.
Kind of where the oil kind of separates and you got to mix it in a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. As it burned, I got a nice leather note, a sort of an old aged leather, not like a car seat, but like maybe like an old leather strap or a saddle or something, and a very nice profile of earthiness. The ash burned a little crooked, which I think you can see in one of the pictures here, but the burn line itself was pretty even. It's just, you know how you've smoked about an inch and it's kind of at an angle from the end of your cigar? It was one of those. And anyway, I flicked it off just to keep it from coming after me. The peanut note kind of morphed into wood, sort of like charred oak as I got into the second third. Not campfire, just that sort of charred oak smell, almost like you would... like an oak barrel that's been charred.
More like a cooking fire.
Yes,
or
yes, absolutely. It was really, really pleasant. Pepper on the retrohale, still plenty of aged leather. The sun-grown wrapper seemed to provide spiciness and a sweet undertone at the same time, which kind of helped the cigar be really nicely balanced. The earthy note and the charred wood stayed all the way through the final third, but I also got a little bit of chocolate, too, that I noticed from about the halfway point on into the end. Construction was great. The cigar was nicely complex all the way through, and it was a real nice change of pace for me. I really enjoyed it. You might be able to occasionally find it for less, but this Robusto is about an $8 cigar, and I would say it's worth every penny, and maybe a tiny bit more. With all the newer stuff Rocky has out there, don't sleep on the sun-grown. It's definitely worth your time. I would recommend it, and price to quality, give it a solid 5. So worth it. So
I just want to say you're so lucky to have missed the Barry Gibb impressions. I mean, it's awkward. It's like watching me trying to fold a fitted sheet. It's a terrible thing. It's like what is going on here?
Well, again, it's not designed to be good. It's designed to encourage you to get us a really good jingle written. I mean, let's be honest. When you went after the project of our theme song, which is just brilliantly brilliantly done. And then when you came up with the drinking news theme song,
You did torture me with the drinking news thing.
Yeah, and this is good stuff. See, I know you're an artist. I just have to push you a little, like a good manager, you know.
Noted.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, we are going to take a break when we come. Oh, I see you've got something leather out there. What is it?
I do, yeah.
I
Well,
can
since
smell
I'm not a cigar person, but I am a tobacco person. So this is my pipe setup. And I was going to show you guys. I actually have tobacco in here. You guys can smell.
We will have to have you come back when we do the pipe show because we do a pipe
You do
show
a pipe
at least
show.
at least
Okay.
once a year. We do a pipe show, so you'll have to come smoke pipe with us. But that
Absolutely.
that I'm trying to see.
That
if I can
smells like
smell
an
it. Yeah.
English blend from here.
Ah, yeah.
These
see,
are
you're
these
good with it.
are this is Burley Light No Bite. Smell it. I just love hearing you guys talk about the flavors
Oh,
that you
that's
guys
so
get
great. It's
and how
so
you
great.
analyze it is so cool because
Ian,
coming
you're
from a
You're
beer
gonna love
background.
this tobacco blend.
From a beer
yeah.
background, it's identical, right? There's so many of the crossover flavors and how
Right.
you
Oh,
guys
absolutely,
analyze it.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So that's that's my jam on all of it. You know, even
I
getting
love
into
and,
Oh,
tobacco.
and
at
that
all.
leather pouch. You have to show that to the camera.
Yeah, that case
that
is
is-
fantastic.
This is my best buddy Brandon Kern. He's a master som here in Houston. He got me this for Christmas. This pipe is a Savinelli Italian pipe from my mom from
That's
Christmas.
beautiful.
So yeah, I just enjoy it, man. I like the flavors. I like it's kind of those flavors that you can smell in a red wine or in a really good beer, but you can actually. It's so weird how our brains file that stuff, right? That catalog. When you're saying, "Oh, I smell this type of flavor," your brain is literally smelling that exact aroma compound.
And I'll say this too, because people ask, well, how do you get that stuff? And it's like, well, I haven't always. I mean, when I first started smoking cigars, I liked the flavor, but I couldn't told
parse
you,
it out
right.
like that, yeah.
But the way I always recommend to people, and you can do this with beer, or you can do this with spirits or pipe tobacco, anything, is when you're partaking of some of that, take a look at what others who do that have written about it. And if they say, or maybe even what Ian or I might say here on the show, if we say, hey, there was this charred oak sort of vibe to it, see if you can identify that.
Yeah.
Once you start looking at it like that, you'll pretty soon begin to go, oh yeah, I see what he means. It's earthy. I get that, or whatever it may
and
be.
we always try to go with flavors that you've probably recognized make sense. No one here is going, oh, it reminds me of the underside of a persimmon leaf grown on the south side of a mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Picked at 11:58.
But I have seen reviews
Yes.
that are that absurd. Yeah,
yes.
I totally have. So we try to stay with things like baking spice and things that we recognize. Again, I wouldn't recognize that persimmon leaf. So that's just me.
When we analyze hops in beer, there are words that a lot of these hop growers and companies are based out of Germany or England. They have totally different fruits over there.
Right.
So
that's a good point.
So they will describe things, and then very savvy Americans will listen to it and they will repeat it back because it sounds cool. Well, it doesn't have any use if nobody knows what you're talking about.
We should
if
totally-
we've never encountered it, it
We
doesn't
should
matter.
totally make something up that doesn't exist, and go, and I got a hint of persanthemum.
Chrysanthemum.
And see if we could get it to catch on. I would love to see that in like a cigar aficionado review at some point. Yeah. Hints of persanthemum.
Love that.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with our next segment, and that will be the segment where we start tasting us some Guinness. Plus, Ian has brought in today, and I know you think I'm about to say a whiskey, but no. It's a rum. It's a Mocambo rum, and it is a gorgeous bottle, and we'll be tasting some of that as the program continues. Plus, 8 extraordinary cigars you really should check out from a new article in Cigar Aficionado. We'll share that with you as well.
They really need to work on those catchphrases. Should be like 8 extraordinary cigars. We tried 8 extraordinary cigars.
That you need
what
to
happened.
smoke right now.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be a right now, or you won't believe what happens.
I can just touch more
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And we are thrilled to be back with you for show number 278. and our guest is David Schroeder from Guinness. Ian, I'm sure you've heard the phrase "whiskey nose" before, right? That's when you see somebody that's got the little capillary thing going on, and you can tell, that's a person who's probably enjoyed a lot of whiskey in his lifetime. Well, there's a new definition for whiskey nose, and it's a robot whiskey nose. We've mentioned this on the show before, that they've been in development for an artificial nose that could help whiskey makers find counterfeits.
Oh, okay.
To find counterfeit whiskey. And the electronic nose that's called NOSE, nose, has now gotten very, very close to 100% accuracy in recognizing whiskey brands.
Huh.
So if you're Macallan, it can tell that that's your whiskey, and if somebody else is trying to pass something off as Macallan, and it can tell that it's not.
Oh, wow.
They say it's at about 95% accuracy right now, which is, that's weirder than self-driving cars. You know what I mean?
Robotic noses.
Did you see the video that was out this week, by the way, of the cop that pulled over a self-driving car, and he goes up to it and there's nobody in it? And it was like somebody shot the video on their phone from other side of the street. The cop goes up and he looks in the car. There's nobody there. He starts walking back to his car, and the self-driving car just takes off. It's great.
What did he pull the car over for?
I don't know. It didn't say that in the video that I watched. But if you look it up on YouTube, just do police self-driving car, you'll find it. It's
That's too
it's
funny.
definitely where. But it is the funniest moment when he's walking back to his car, and the self-driving car just boom. Off it goes. Like,
this conversation is going to be hilarious in 20 years when we're like, remember when we had to drive cars?
You're absolutely right. Although, I still don't have my rocket pack. And when I was a kid, I was told by now we would all have rocket packs, and that's how we would be able to travel around.
I just want to know when the whiskey-smelling robot is also going to be the one driving. Because there's some crossover there. I don't know what it is, but
that seems like a good blend of uses for a robot. Then, right?
Or it seems like a really interesting future sci-fi movie plot.
Ex Maltina.
The whiskey.
If you have
Maltina, I like it. That's good. Oh boy,
if you have a self-driving car, you could just install the nose, right? And the software, so you could sit in the back seat.
I was wondering about this. Once self-driving cars become the thing, like everybody's got them, right? Will that change drinking and driving laws? Like, will you be allowed to be driven by your car and have something to drink while you're in it? Or
Drinking and riding.
Will that still be Will that still be taboo? I don't know.
Well, there's the open container law,
right?
and all
But
that.
the basic reason for the open container law is so it helps if you get pulled over. It helps them establish if you've been drinking or not, if the container's open. So, or helps them establish the reason that they can demand that you take a breathalyzer or whatever it is because you've got an open container. Seriously, like if I've got a bottle of whiskey in the car but the cap is on it, is that considered an open container if it's been opened before and some of the whiskey is gone? Or is that not an open container? I don't know.
You haven't been drinking. It's just the robot's been smelling whiskey all day.
That's exactly what it is. And that's his robotic nose giving off a few of those. Listen, there's some spirits that we've tried that smell so good. I would love to wear it as cologne. If it wouldn't be a problem with the traffic stop. So, we are excited to have you here today because we're actually big fans of Guinness, and I have been ever since I really kind of got introduced to it. Not in a traditional Irish sort of way. I got introduced to it back when I was doing radio. We were doing promotions with Guinness, and so it's always proper etiquette to, if you're at a promotion, to drink the beer that the promotion. So I was so thrilled when it was you guys instead of Bud Light. But that was when I started to drink Guinness often enough to develop a real appreciation for it. And Ian has an even better story because Guinness has to do with how he met his wife.
Really?
I was playing at a bar in Baytown on St. Patrick's Day. This would have been 2010. And apparently my wife, who obviously wasn't my wife at the time, had moved recently to Baytown, Texas, and decided she was going to go out on St. Patrick's Day. So she had her brother lined up to drop her off and pick her up wherever she wanted to go, as he wasn't old enough to join her at a bar yet. But she called around Baytown. Now Baytown's kind of a blue collar,
it's a
smaller
working
town,
class town,
and there's not a lot of craft beer places in Baytown. As a matter of fact, there was one, and it was the Dirty Bay Beer Company, is what it was called. So I was playing there. She called around. It was the only place that said they had Guinness, and it was St. Patrick's Day, so it was a popular place that night. Anyway, so she shows up and sits at the end of the bar right next to his wife.
Eventually, she wasn't my wife at the time,
Right.
But yeah,
Wow.
but yeah.
So that's how we all met. So
And so she came out looking for a good pint of Guinness
Yep.
for St. Patrick's Day.
That's a good one. That's a keeper
and,
right there.
and kind of and fell for the guitar player. That's pretty cool. You gotta
that was
love it.
pretty awesome.
You gotta love it. Well, let's do some tasting here. What are we starting with?
Well, today I'm going through all of our core beers. So these
Okay.
are beers that they kind of tell, not only are they core to our business, and we sell a lot of them and they're widely available everywhere you look, really, but also it tells a story of the history of our brewery as well. So you might be familiar with, in beer styles, the idea of, labeling a style of beer based on its strength. This was historically the best way to, the only way when you walk into a bar or a shack with serving beer wherever you are in the world, the most important information is how strong is it.
Right.
And so, you see a lot in England, you'll see single or a special bitter, extra special bitter. In Belgium, you'll see a single, a double, or triple. So strength is, historically, that's how we really grade all of our beers. And Guinness is no exception to that as well. So we're really kind of tasting all different strengths of this beer, categories that we've had since we opened probably in 1759. We've always had three different categories of, like, this is our single beer, low in alcohol, meant for, basically a replacement, a cleaner the thing than water to drink. And then something that's a little bit more fortified with hops and alcohol, two major preservation agents we had before refrigeration, that would go out to the countryside. And then something that was even higher hopped and higher alcohol that would go even further than that. So really, we're tasting those three categories today.
Awesome.
And I'm not doing them in order because I just don't feel like it. But this is the extra stout. So this is really before I worked for Guinness. I was working at a brewery called Independence in Austin, Texas.
I've been there.
Okay, yeah, it's a great brewery. After I got off work, I would go and buy a 6-pack of this beer, and it was so. We were brewing a lot of IPAs. It was when IPAs were blowing up, and it just had the bitterness and the intensity, but also some acidity into it. It was so much different than any other stout, like you were saying earlier, Cruze. It's many people think dark beer, it's got to be heavy. It was so much different than any stout that we were making or any other brewery I'd tasted before. And in fact, I even at that time called. There was a 1-800 number on the back of the 6-pack, and I called them that 1-800 number, and I was like, I want to know anything you can tell me about this beer. And it was a lady at a call center. They didn't have anybody like what my job is now. But I was just so intrigued by the way it tasted, and I know a lot more about it now and how it's made, but it still has that intrigue for me as well. This we're drinking out of, it's available most commonly, you'll see it in 22-ounce bottles or 6-packs bottles. This is a 19.2-ounce can, which is kind of fun. It's a cool package.
But it's the Guinness Extra Stout.
Guinness Extra Stout, yeah. So compared to what everybody thinks of as Guinness, when you're drinking on St. Patrick's Day, you're drinking, something that comes out of the tap. It's that's infused with nitrogen. We'll talk about that beer next. But this is higher alcohol than that at 5.6%, higher hops at about 50 IBUs at a scale of 0 to 100. So it's got more bite than what people typically think of with Guinness. In
Right.
fact, when people say that Guinness is a strong, heavy beer, I almost wonder if they're talking about if they accidentally got this from the store, because the label's not that different. Like, you would think that this is Guinness.
But I think when people talk about Guinness being a strong, heavy beer, and I run across this with people all the time, I'm like, how often do you drink it? Well, almost never. When they tell me it's a strong, heavy beer, I'm like, it's actually not. Mm-hmm. It's actually a pretty light drinking stout when you compare it to everything else. And they talk about how strong it is. I'm like, it's below 5%.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually the same amount of alcohol as most of your macro brews that you're talking about.
Even
Yeah.
the Guinness Extra Stout is 5.6% ABV.
Yeah, and
So
it's super.
It's not like it's
It's
not,
good.
it really is, and it's we have tried on this show, and Ian has tried just at his house a whole lot of different stouts, and what I find interesting is that it's almost certain to me that the ones that are a bit higher in ABV are going to have the best flavor profiles. Guinness is the exception to that,
Right.
because you guys have got just really full flavored beer without it being heavy, without it being high ABV. Honestly, I don't know how you do it.
It's a very. That's one of the questions I had before I started working for him. I was asking that as a brewer, because every dark beer I make, it was, would be sweet. It would be hard to attenuate or otherwise. So one of the processes of fermentation, the primary process of fermentation, is the yeast is eating the sugar and producing alcohol. The more sugar that the yeast eats, the more alcohol it puts out. Problem is, yeast are like people, and eventually they die from alcohol. They die from CO2 suffocation, and so it's difficult. One of the major one of the central jobs of a brewer is to get the yeast to eat more sugar. And if you can say to a brewer, a couple compliments you can tell a brewer. First one is, that does not taste that strong. It tastes like it's way lower than that, because that means they covered up the alcohol well. It's not. It's very easy to make a beer that tastes boozy.
It's very boozy, sure.
And the other
we've
thing,
had plenty of those on there too.
and the other thing you can say, or you can just show it by drinking, by wanting to drink it, is if it's dry. That means that the yeast was healthy enough to be a marathon runner and eat a lot of those sugars, leaving a very dry beer. Dry being advantageous for us for a few reasons. One, because it dries out your mouth, makes you want to drink more. Sugar is one of the biggest causes of hangovers, so less sugar is better. It's also, sugar is good, conversely, for flavor profile, because you get that big, full, rich one. So that's why those higher ones tend to have a better flavor profile. It's easier to do. So when a brewer makes a dry beer, it's really, really satisfying, and that's why that's what it makes this beer, I think, unique. Is that all of our beers are dark, but very dry.
We call that the Doritos effect here on the show.
You want more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and just to try and get it out there, like what we're talking about is this doesn't have a heavy, viscous mouthfeel to it.
Right.
Correct,
And
yeah.
that's-
None of your beers have that. And that's obviously not what you go for. So it's a stout, unlike most stouts that you try, in that they're not going for a big, crazy mouthfeel. It's a lot of flavor, but it's not strong alcohol. It's not strong mouthfeel, those kind of things.
Was the regular Guinness Stout the first Guinness beer, and then this came after?
So these are. So if we go back to the thinking of it as in categories, we've always had what Guinness is, 4.2%, actually lower than that. If you would have gone to Dublin in the late 1700s, Dublin was an ironworker city, so very blue collar. So water was not as clean as treated as beer, and so you would have, if you would have went into a pub and you would have ordered a beer, it probably would have been a low ABV beer. So I say that Guinness Draft is within that category of a low alcohol, easy to drink, sessionable beer that we've made since the beginning. However, it uses technology that wasn't available in the 1700s. It wasn't available till much later than that technology that we invented, and that is the infusion of nitrogen, which we can talk more about when we get to it.
And so I want to talk to you when we come back in the next segment. I want to talk to you a little bit about the nitrogen. I want to talk to you about why, more so than any other beer, any other beverage that I know of, people who are fans of Guinness are obsessed with the perfect pour. So I want to talk about why that is and what is the perfect pour, and we'll have those questions, and of course we'll be sampling more as we go. You're listening to and watching Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 278. Our guest today from Guinness is Mr. David Schroeder, and we'll be right back. The Sufferers, I love those guys. They have a new album coming, by the way.
Nice.
Very cool. So, welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. We are the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Speaking of which, happy birthday wishes are in order for one Manuel Manolo Quesada. The great cigar maker turned 75 years old this week. In honor of his milestone and his many decades in the cigar industry, he has blended a limited edition cigar, did the blend himself, and it is called the Manolo Quesada 75th. It should start appearing in retail by this summer. So
I will be looking for
under
that.
the headline cigars to watch for. I remember one of my first cigars that I just went absolutely crazy for, before I kind of became the AJ Fernandez fanboy, was the Quesada Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest, yeah.
And it was different every year, and some years were better than others, but there were a couple of years in there.
That 2016 is still legendary in my mind.
That is just a fantastic cigar. To the point where if I'm visiting another city and I pop into a cigar store and they happen to still have some, I buy them all. It's that good. But anyway, it was made at Quesada's Tabacos de Exportacion factory in the Dominican Republic. It will be only available in a single Churchill size, 6 3/4 by 48, and that's one of his go-to sizes. It is rolled with an Ecuadorian Corojo wrapper, a Dominican binder, and a mix of Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers, slated to retail for about $15 each. And cigar stores and lounges will be able to pre-order it at this year's PCA trade show. They're limiting it to only 1,200 boxes of 10, so there's not going to be that many of them out there. Encore from EP Carrillo, which you are familiar with, hit the market for the first time in the spring of 2018, and it has been an absolute rarity in the cigar industry because it has not had a Robusto size. That is about to change as the EP Carrillo Encore Robusto, which is still the most popular size in American cigar shops. It is hitting cigar stores almost immediately. It is called the EP Carrillo Encore El Futuro, which is Spanish for the Futuro.
Nice.
It's a Robusto measuring 5 inches long by 50, and it's going to retail for $11.90. But the release will initially be limited to 1,000 boxes of 10 cigars. I'm predicting this will be one of those initially limited, and then it'll be
that is the
widespread.
dead center of Robusto size.
Yeah,
too.
it is. It has the same dimension, by the way, as another cigar of the year that EP Carrillo made, which was the Pledge. That it was the Robusto size. So, and one more piece of cigars to watch for news: Davidoff's black banded edition or collection rather of cigars, historically referred to as the Discovery Series, is getting a new limited edition. Although rather than fitting into an existing line, it's a combination of its Escurio, Nicaragua, and Yamasa blends. It's the Davidoff Limited Edition 2022 Grand Toro. It's a 5.5 by 58, capped off by a dark Ecuadorian wrapper, a Brazilian seed binder underneath, and 5 different fillers. And it will retail for $32 per cigar.
Wow.
Because it's a Davidoff.
Well, you've now said Davidoff 4 times or 5 times, so you already owe him $20.
I've only got like a couple of ones here. Can you spot me? Yeah, they are not known for producing inexpensive cigars.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, those are some cigars to watch for. Those some good stuff coming out. I can't wait to try that Casada.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
That's going to be absolutely wonderful. All right, so this Guinness you poured us is out of a bottle. Talk to us about what exactly we're sampling here.
Okay, so we're going up the three categories of based on strength. So this is the highest one that we make historically. So foreign extra stout, made for foreign export. First brewed this category probably 1801. And
So this is extra hops and extra alcohol so that it preserves.
correct. Yeah, that was the chief method of preservation prior to refrigeration. So actually, in the United States, when we had Prohibition, a very dark period in our past.
Yes.
1919 to 1933. Before that period, this category of beer would have been shipped to the United States. It was called, we didn't name a beer for marketing really at that time. It was just where it was going. So we labeled it West Indies Porter because that was the trading port. But yes, higher alcohol, higher hops. After Prohibition, refrigeration became more widespread, and so we did the beer that we just tasted, extra stout, up until 1959, 1964 rather, was whenever it was released in the United States, when Guinness Draft, which is now what everybody associates with Guinness.
With Guinness, yeah.
Which we'll taste next.
So you mentioned the what did you call it? The East Indies. What did you say it was called?
In the United States, what we would have the earliest record we have of beer going to the United States was in 1817, and that was 6 large barrels of West Indies Porter.
So West Indies Porter, which was named thusly for the same reasons that IPA got its name as an India Pale Ale. People say, well, did it originate in India? No, but it was about beer that was being shipped along the the Silk Road or whatever the trade routes were, and it was designed to be as hoppy as it was, not because people were looking for that big burst of hops like a lot of beer aficionados do now, but because it would help it keep.
Correct,
and it wouldn't spoil on the journey.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd again how we were talking about. Now we're using barrels for flavor. Same thing happened with IPAs, in that at that time hops was one of the few ways that you could, as a brewer, preserve your beer. Now we're doing it completely different. We're not making hoppy beers to keep. In fact, hoppy IPAs are best when they're
fresh.
You're supposed to
drink them fresh, so it's gone full circle on that.
Exactly.
So we have a totally different. We're getting flavors now out of hops that are completely different from when that style was first created. But same concept with this beer. This, of course, in the continent of Africa, it was uninterrupted. There was no prohibition there, and so that's why 85% of our global sales of Guinness are this beer in the continent of Africa. They drink a ton of this beer.
So interesting.
And that's, to your point, why it's not necessarily a cold weather beer, and that proof is in the sales.
Yeah,
because it's not in Africa that they drink a ton of this beer.
Yeah, it's year round. So this is
What's the ABV on this one?
7.5.
7.5.
This is the only Guinness that you get just a touch of booziness on the nose.
Yeah, I get butterscotch a lot out of this. This is diacetyl that is kind of used and is allowed in this particular style, but in other styles it'd be an off flavor. It's a big beer. It's super rich. It's super decadent. I still think if you put it against any other 7.5% stout on the shelf, or anything in the 7 range, it's still drier. It still has that kind of finish that cuts off all that sweetness. But this is, I think, one of the best beers we make.
This is also the most carbonated. It has this carbonation zing that sits on the tongue after you take a sip. That's oddly interesting in this beer. And I think in a lot of stouts that can be distracting. And in this one, the bitterness of the hops and that carbonation zing kind of add a little something.
Yeah, I was going to say it does actually work. And the thing that I get most out of this is that the chocolate note is a really, really dark, semi-bitter
Yeah.
kind of a chocolate. It just kind of hangs out on your tongue after the finish, and it's really. But you're right, Ian, with the carbonation, which is often detracts, I think, from stouts if they're too carbonated. In this case, it really, really works. That and that bitter, dark chocolate vibe just work really, really well together.
So we use coffee and chocolate flavor descriptors all the time to describe our beers, especially this one, bittersweet espresso, chocolate. And the reason there is a practical reason. We were talking earlier about how people use ridiculous flavors. This is not that ridiculous to use those flavors because we actually roast the barley very similar to how you roast coffee. It's a large rotating drum. We've been doing it that way for over 200 years. And that's one of the secret, I think part of the secret sauce of our beers is that the dark roasty character is our own because we oversee that roasting. And so we roast it in big drums. And when barley, it turns out when you roast barley or roast anything really to that point, same thing happens with a steak when you get that nice char on it.
Right. I was going to say you guys roasted a little further, I think, because you get almost that charred flavor from it.
Yeah, they like the flavor profile is definitely more of that bittersweet espresso.
I bet
type.
it smells amazing when you guys are doing that.
It's really nice. Yeah, the
it
roast
does.
house smells really good.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk the perfect pour. We're going to see if we can do a perfect pour with the help of a little gadget that David brought. And we also, I haven't mentioned this, but we're just a segment or two away from Drinking News, our most popular portion of the program. And I have not given you today's Drinking News teaser headline, which is Monkey See, Monkey Do. Anytime Drinking News is about monkeys, it's a thing to look forward to. I'm just going to say that. I don't know if you've ever heard, and they're out there. You can find them and listen to it. If you ever heard the Ricky Gervais podcast, which came out a number of years ago, we can go ahead and do the music. That's fine. They had a segment on it called Monkey News. And it was always my favorite portion of the show. And so we'll have some monkey news and some drinking news coming up. And we'll also talk more Guinness and the perfect pour, smoking and toasting. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This program's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are excited to be on show number 278, and even more excited to have Guinness in the house. And we'll get back to Guinness in just a moment. So thanks for hanging on with us. We're going to do our best to see if we can make a perfect pour. And talk about why that is, in fact, important, if it is important. David will explain. It'll all be good. Cigar Aficionados put out a new list, as they are prone to do, of 8 extraordinary cigars everyone should be smoking
Right now.
It doesn't actually say that, but it almost feels like it's implied.
It doesn't say it, but
Yeah.
you should.
So I'll just run down this list for you, and you can see if you want to try any of these. They recommend the Brick House Churchill. It's a Nicaraguan cigar. It got 92 points.
Yes.
And they say a cigar company as old as J.C. Newman often has a big book of old trademarks it can resurrect, and Brick House is one of them. It's actually positioned as a value brand, but they say it certainly doesn't smoke.
You cannot
like
go
one.
wrong with a Brick House cigar.
Yeah. The current Cuban Cohiba Robusto makes the list. If you can get your hands on one of these, and it's real, you will really enjoy smoking it. They say it was once described as the ultimate power lunch cigar, but envelops the palate with a perceptibly creamy smoke. I will say I got a half a dozen of those from a buddy one time as a gift. They showed up in a FedEx envelope, and they were some of the best cigars I've ever smoked. I've been in search of that experience again ever since. And I've
Right.
tried some, and they have not lived up to what I remembered those being like. Or maybe the ones I tried weren't really coherent.
Yeah, I mean,
it's entirely possible.
There's that.
The Epicurio, La Historia Senador, got 93 points, part one in what was to become an epic trilogy of cigar brands. La Historia is made by Ernesto Perez Carrillo, and it is driven by a Mexican wrapper backed up by Nicaraguan filler for a smoke they say is full of dark chocolate, black licorice, and coffee. The Cuban Monte Cristo Edmundo got 93 points in Cigar Aficionado, and the Nicaraguan Padron Damase, number 12. Now, have you had the, I'm sorry, not Damase, Damaso. Have you had the Damaso?
I don't think so.
I have not. So it's a rounded Padron cigar. It's not box pressed. And it's got the Damaso band underneath the more typical Padron band, if you're looking for it. So if you're looking down the aisle at your favorite cigar store and you see all the Padrones, the one that has that little extra band,
That secondary
may
band,
be
yeah.
what you're looking for. The Partagas Serie D, number 5 from Cuba, 94 points. You got me some of those not that long
We had
ago.
the number 4.
So this is the number 5. Yeah, you're
No,
right.
this is number 5, which is a different size. I don't think
4
it's
is a
different
little
one.
longer, I think. The 5 is shorter. The Plasencia Almafuerte Generacion V from Nicaragua. That's the one that's so tapered. It looks like an Andalusian bull, kind of the shape of
Right.
it. But it's just a regular Plasencia Almafuerte, and it's really good. And then finally, the Rocky Patel 6060 from Nicaragua that they show at 93 points, which is, it's one of the reasons you go in, that thing is so amazing. The cigar band goes all the way down the length of the cigar. It's one of the reasons people overlook, like, the Sun-Grown, which is the one that I had today, because you go in and that cigar is just so pretty. You got to have it.
Rocky Patel has so many good cigars.
Yeah. Birthdays and anniversaries are taken very seriously in the cigar industry. So happy birthday, anniversary, or whatever Rocky has that turned 60. I hope it was good. You are checking out Smoking and Toasting, and we are thrilled to be here this week. Our guest, David Schroeder, is with Guinness. And, okay, so before we try one, what is the mystery? What is the secret? Why is the perfect pour a thing?
That's a good question and not one that I can readily answer.
Really?
Yeah, because it's something that, to zoom out and not to get too esoteric. But you both said that, you said especially that you met your wife indirectly through Guinness.
She is very critical about the pour that she gets.
And I love that she was calling around and asking who has St. Patrick's Day. I have to have a Guinness on St. Patrick's Day. I met my fiance through a perfect pour competition. She was working in Oklahoma at a bar, and I was a judge there, and she poured a perfect pour. And so I also am kind of, connected. My life is, indirectly indebted to to Guinness, and the perfect pour is such a big part of what we do.
I love that.
And it's not something that's why I say I can't fully understand it, because I can't think of any other beer. No one's saying, man, they pour a really good pint of Michelob Ultra. It's just not something
Something about that just sent a shiver up my spine. That just seemed so wrong.
I've never heard anybody say it with any other beer.
There is a thing, the slow pour.
Yeah, that's true. The slow pour in Czech Republic. Yeah, there is a precedent.
And there's a brewery here in Houston. There's a couple of them that do it. So Eureka Heights will do a slow pour, and it takes, I think, a specific device to do it, right?
Yeah, you have to have a specific tap.
And also equal parts.
Right.
I had their lager beer on slow pour actually just a few days ago, and it is fantastic.
And then there's, of course, our buddy Chris Hart, who's our resident whiskey expert, and he believes in the hard pour. He just slams.
Yeah, he also drinks Montucky Cold Snack and loves it.
Well, there's no accounting for taste. There's no accounting for taste.
So
he was surprised we didn't like it. That's what blew me away. I mean,
then he tried to sneak it to us.
Yeah, well, I know.
We were like, "This is terrible."
Yeah.
Oh, that's Montucky Cold Snack.
He malorted us with Montucky Cold Snack. Anyway, I'm sorry. The slow pour is.
So there's the one exception. Sorry.
There's one. I mean, there are some examples, but it's not very common, and I don't know exactly where it comes from. I can tell you that for generations, like back in the day, we would actually not put anything in bottles. In fact, to this day in Dublin, we do not put anything in bottles or cans. We put it in tankers and ship it somewhere else to be bottled and canned. And the reason behind that was because back in the day we didn't do any canning and bottling of our own. You would actually see somebody else's label on it, and that somebody else usually ran a pub, and they would just put it from their barrels, from their tap, they would put it into bottles. And so from that, people got a name and a recognition for pouring a good pint of Guinness or pouring they know how to bottle. So we've always had this in our DNA, like handling it a certain way, and I think that's part of why it still lives today. But in terms of, I can tell you that as somebody who has traveled all across the country and tried Guinness all over, there is something that is extremely satisfying when you get a good one. And a lot of times getting a good one is know it when I see it. And there's something extremely demoralizing whenever I get one that is not handled correctly.
Interesting. Okay, so if it's not handled correctly, what most likely happened?
So there's a few things that can be. The biggest ones...
Patience.
Yeah, there's the pouring aspect is definitely one of the hardest parts of it. And when I say you know it when you see the good one, it's literally like it just kind of shines like in the commercial. And you just look at it and it just makes you want to drink it because there's certain things that checkpoints that have been hit. Mm-hmm. Whenever it's not there, what I see the most often that I've noticed across the country is it's poured into a shaker pint. And this is a shaker pint, for example.
Okay.
So I get served that particular, and we distribute, like here in Houston, we distribute through two distributors, HTC and Faust, and they're awesome distributors. They also distribute. Probably their biggest customer is Molson Coors, and so we're in most Molson Coors. We're not in Anheuser-Busch, and that's part of the reason I can talk shit about them all the time, is because we're not usually with them. But one thing I'll do to my Molson Coors distributors when I'm trading is I'll give them a picture of a Guinness I was served in a Bud Light glass versus one that I was served in a Guinness glass and looks perfect.
And the Guinness glass has got a little taper to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the main thing is that it's different. I mean, it doesn't have to be. There are places here in town that pour Guinness into not a Guinness glass, but it's not a shaker pint. These are really bad for beer in terms of they're designed to kill foam, basically. That's kind of an efficient utilitarian. This shape of this glass is designed so the foam comes out and you can pour it off easily because the beer is too foamy, but you can't actually build a nice head of foam. So,
and as we've talked about the perfect pour, what distinguishes it is the head on the beer being correct. Is that right?
The head's part of it. Yeah, that's one of the 4 visual indicators I say. Being in a good glass is the other one. I don't think we're going to be able to do it here today. I did bring some gadget that I've never played with before. That's probably a bad idea to do first time on this program, but
come on, I'm for it. Let's fire it up.
It wouldn't be the first bad idea we've gone for on the program. So don't be afraid.
So I'll show you first. Just if you get a can from, this is something I like to do on radio, but you can actually hear as I'm.
Right, you can hear that little nitro thing knocking around in there.
Yeah, so that was an invention that came along about 30 years after the invention of nitrogenation. Nitrogenation being the infusion of beer with nitrogen that we invented and released first in 1959. Nitrogen having smaller bubbles than carbon dioxide gives you a velvety, it's kind of like the difference between fine sand and a rocky beach. So velvety texture. So that 30 years it took us to figure out, well, how do we put that in a can that people can take home? And that's what that widget is, the invention.
Did you used to call it like a rocket ship
we used to call it a rocket when it was in the bottle,
right.
But this is a round ball if you cut it open.
Okay.
And the design of that is exactly like when you see a nozzle at the bar. There is a restrictor plate inside, which is slightly smaller than nitrogen bubbles, and that nitrogen wants to squeeze through there, and that kind of agitates everything. And that's the job of the widget, too. There are tiny holes in there.
So I want to point out, if you're watching the video, you notice he's not afraid to shake around that can. It's because it's not carbonated.
It's 25% CO2 and 75% nitrogen.
Very light carbonated, so it's not like it's going to explode.
Yeah, nitrogen
just by
is
moving it around.
way more stable. That was one of the one of the benefits whenever it was first released is, hey, this is a more stable beer. It's not going to be as foamy whenever you are pouring it off a keg. So I'll open a regular can if you were to open it, and it will make a little bit of a mess. And you'll hear that widget actually, thank you, you'll hear that widget actually spinning around in the solution and making it should make a high-pitched squeal.
Now that may be one of the better sound effects for opening a beer that we've had on the show.
You might need to capture that one. Keep it. But for a can, I'm not going to get a perfect head on it, but I am just going to do a straight continuous pour. You said you like to do straight down pour.
I
That's
dump
fine.
the can.
Dump the can right in there.
You familiar with that? Dump the can
just dump
and
it
pull
and then
it
kind
up.
of lift it up. So in this can, you still get. It's not going to be.
You're
as
looking
good
at those
as,
cascading bubbles. Though.
Yeah, cascading bubbles. It's not going to get as beautiful as whenever you have it on a tap. That's why I have it on tap at my house for that very reason, because I love the experience of having that beer pour.
Can I try one in the other glass that we have?
Yeah, of course.
Because I've done it like that with the hard pour like you do, but I found if you dump the glass.
Let's see it.
While you're doing that, I'll just mention you talked about having a tap in your home. I was responsible for getting one of those from Guinness for Dave Matthews.
Okay, when I'm
No
talking
kidding.
about dumping the can in the glass, I'm literally talking about.
Yeah, and then you just kind of pull it up as it fills, right?
Yeah.
And this, you can kind of control how the head.
Yeah, I love that.
Develops.
Yeah, bartenders love doing that. Let's see.
Nice.
That's a nice one.
You're doing a good job there, Ian. That's good.
I practice.
That is amazing.
And you can get it to just rim the glass.
So this is a device. That's
Really
a really
nicely
nice head,
done.
by the way.
So this thing that looks like one of those plague doctors from back in the medieval times, or some kind of twisted Muppet. What is that?
This is a nitro surge. So over in during lockdown, they in Ireland, they're very much pub people.
Right.
And so
you have to open that first
Yeah, I
before you
think
pour.
so.
I
I
think.
puncture. I've never done this before, so I have no idea what I'm doing really. It's also not the way to do it. But during lockdown in Ireland, when the pubs were closed, they devised all these systems to do things with cans, and this is one of the ones that they came out with.
Oh, I'm liking it so far.
But it's a similar
Now, do you
thing
have
to
your
what,
finger on a button on the back of that?
Yeah, there's a button right there, and it uses sound waves. So that's a pretty good pour.
I have to say, now that I'm looking at this pour and that pour, they're almost the same. The one that you did with the hard pour.
Yeah, and anything we get out of a can, I mean, the tap that is in my opinion the way to get it to enjoy this beer. It's meant to be enjoyed fresh. It's meant to be enjoyed with friends at the pub. 3 or 4 hours at the pub.
So a good pour doesn't necessarily mean that the bartender makes a little heart shape on the top of the suds like they do with coffee. You've seen that, right? Where
they'll put shamrocks and things in
Yeah,
it.
Right. Yeah. Is that part of it?
Which is cool when they do it because
Yeah.
it looks neat, but it has to be a good pour on top of that.
Well,
Irish brewers, Irish bartenders are extremely particular about Guinness. They handle it very, very well over there. That you have to in order to be a pub over there, and they kind of turn their nose up at doing clovers and shamrocks and all that kind of thing in the beginning, and then they realized that they got really good tips from Americans. So they started like, actually, that's
how
part
it
of canon
works.
now.
Yeah, that's how it works. Well, it's always interesting when you see it done. But
I want to see someone do like a self-portrait with it. You know?
yeah. Well, some artistic.
Because I
people
think it's
behind
the
it all.
only beer that you can even do that with, really, right?
Yeah, it has that foam. Even though we poured that 3 minutes ago, it's still got a foam on it. It's kind of nice.
So you look at I've had about half of that cup. Here's the one you just poured, but you can see there's still a nice layer of foam on top of that.
Yep.
And this one is, working its way toward a more, a more solid, defined body with the head on top. But it will last. This head will last on this until I drink it.
So my brother-in-law is asking about making snake bites with Guinness. That's a Guinness and a cider.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of that particular drink, but a lot of people really do like
Some
it.
people like combining things more.
And there's
than
the
I do.
half and half, which is
half black and tan.
the
I
black
like.
and tan.
Yeah,
Sorry, not the
black
half and half.
I
The
do
Guinness
like
and Harp, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
And
yeah.
what's the relationship of Harp to Guinness?
Harp is a beer that we released in the 1950s, and we create. It was the 1950s is when lager beer in Germany was kind of beginning its world domination, and it's still to this day. If you go into any country that sells beer, that their number one selling beer will be a lager.
Will be a lager. Wow.
So that started in the 50s, and to keep up, Guinness wanted to make a lighter beer, and so they hired a German brewer. They bought a brewery in Dundalk, Ireland, and they started producing Harp Lager. Now it's all
I like
produced in
Harp.
Dublin. It's
Yeah,
pretty good lager.
I like
Yeah.
Harp. I think it's really good. In fact, back in the space, just before I really started to expand into trying a lot of different craft beers, Harp was actually one of my favorites. I'd love going to the Irish pub so I could get a Harp because it actually had some lager flavor. Again, a lager with flavor as opposed to some of the macro brews. And so is Guinness considered, because of its popularity and how much you guys produce, are you considered a macro brew? Do you consider yourselves a craft beer? How does Guinness see itself as a company?
Well, the term craft has changed a lot, and it's kind of a moving target because you have breweries like Boston Beer,
Right.
that is
They're still privately owned. They weren't sold to one of the big guys, but they are a pretty big company, and their beer's available just about everywhere. The Texas equivalent of that would be Shiner.
yeah.
They're bigger than most of what you would call microbrews,
Right.
but they're not. They also still have a great sense of craft to them, and they're not a macro brew. And then there's ones like Carbach or Wicked Weed or Goose Island that started as craft breweries, were bought by the big guys. We kind of call those macro craft,
Right.
at this point. But because there's still definitely some craft brewing going on. But I don't know. It's so. How does Guinness see? How do you guys see yourself?
We don't call ourselves a craft brewery. Just it by any definition, we make a lot more beer than that, and we're also part of a larger company. We're the biggest. Diageo is the biggest spirits company in the world.
Right.
Now that happened in the 1990s, and to be honest, the consolidations you see today are big breweries like you'll see Sapporo by Anchor, or
Right,
something like
right.
that. That's a little bit different because that's a beer company, a big beer company that's coming to another beer company. That's not what was really going on in the 90s whenever Diageo bought Guinness. There was just, at that time, you would have, it was kind of like you were diversified into a lot of different things. You could be into
They've
hotels.
got whiskeys, they've
yeah.
got tequilas, they've got other things, they've got beers. But like you're absolutely right, they diversify into things that aren't spirits or beverages at all.
It was kind of hip at that time to buy everything, and so they bought Guinness, and it's been really good for us because they have left us kind of alone. But we have, even for myself, we have deeper pockets than a brewery, so I could. I get to do a lot more fun stuff. We get to focus a lot more on quality. You'd call it, in layman's terms, the perfect pour. We get to put a lot of effort and time into that, or building the brewery in Baltimore.
Right.
That we age stuff in those bullet barrels. The reason we can do that is because of this, of Diageo. So we don't call ourselves craft, but I think that we do have what I love about working for this brewery is, even myself as a former professional brewer, we kind of hold a special place in a lot of brewers' hearts, where they look at our beer and they taste it and they're like, there is something different going on here. The quality, I never appreciated the importance of consistency and quality in terms of, that is why this name and this label means so much. That's why I have people coming up and wanting swag all the time, even though they don't drink it. They just like that name because it's a good. They know that it's a good thing, and so we, we're not craft, but I think that there's a lot of things about, in the craft movement that we've done really well,
and been doing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the beers are terrific. I love actually just your basic Guinness draft. There's something about that taste, that flavor, that's just like it's like a happy place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like reminds me of really good times with friends where we've been out and drinking Guinness, and it just takes you right back to that. I love the foreign extra stout and the extra stout as beers, but to me, this is what Guinness tastes like.
And I love that. I mean, that's, if you compare us to any other stout or any other beer, really any other import beer, there's not much that there's not many beers out there that you can say have lasted in this category.
Right.
And so I love that this is one of our newer beers, even though it was released in 1959, and it's what everybody associates us with.
Right.
Yet this is considered a pretty recent technological innovation, and I love that that's what people associate us with. And to be honest, if we had not had this beer, we wouldn't be the world's most recognizable best-selling stout.
So before we go to break, let me just ask you this question, because I have some Guinness fan friends who love Guinness to death, but they don't like the cans. They say, oh no, a real Guinness is one that's poured for you the right way at the pub. How good do you feel you guys have gotten at replicating the on draft experience with the technology and everything that's gone into these cans? Are you guys happy with it? Because I got to say, I'm not 100% sure I could tell the difference if you pulled one on draft and went behind the counter and poured the other one out of one of these cans. Could you?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say, because I don't know how much of the enjoyment of it is the presentation.
That's a good point. And maybe
if you do a blind taste test, that would be the curious thing.
Yeah.
I think, to me, so here's how I say it. So, you have this device that came out of kind of the pandemic and us trying to mess around and trying to make the can better. This is what I'll say. I've been doing a lot of pairing work, pairing food and beer for the last few years. And I have had this beer with a cheese from a Vermont creamery called Parish Hill Creamery, and it made that beer out of the can taste better than it ever has, because the food elevated it.
Yeah.
Normal 9 times out of 10 when I open up a can, I get it like 85 would be my grading scale.
Versus a pint
Out of
in a
100.
pub at 100.
So, well, I think, yeah. And then, so to take this Nitro Surge, I believe it has the ability to give it a couple more points. There's an even bigger machine that we're starting to sell in the United States to pubs, that if they don't want to have a keg, they can put a special can into a cradle. It looks just like a tap. That's I was
cool.
skeptical of it, and then I tried it, and I was like, that makes it taste better. I don't know if it's presentation. I don't know if it's the liquid in the can. That maybe knocks it up to a 90. But 98, 99, 100, only had in pubs. Only had off draft.
Ian, does the New Potato do Guinness on draft? I don't know if they do anything on draft. Do they?
Oh, they have lots of drafts.
Oh, okay.
I'm positive he has Guinness on draft. Yeah.
So maybe we should do that on a future show. The New Potato is just one of our favorite local hangout places, and Paul, the guy that runs it's awesome and super supportive.
I think I've been there. That's a little. It's an Irish guy that runs it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep,
it's
I've met
in
him
East
before.
Down.
He used to work at the
downtown.
Harp years ago.
Yeah.
It's
I know
in
him.
East Downtown. They've got a really nice, really big outdoor area, and we do a number of shows there. We've done the pipe show there before, because there's we can sit outside and under the rooftop and smoke. So it's a great place to do that stuff. And he's just a friend and will always let us do stuff. But we should do that. We should get some cans and have him do a draft version for us
Versus-
and do a blind taste test and see if you or I can tell the difference. I'm not sure that I could.
I'd love to.
but
I'd love to do
you
it.
spend more time
I
doing
always
this.
feel like, because I'm a big fan of draft beer, I always feel like draft
Yeah.
beer has a little bit better flavor overall. And it could be, I mean, there's just a truth to like the fact that we see things, we put up a set of expectations, and we will go with that no matter what. You know?
But you can't pressurize this can as much as you can a stainless steel keg. So there's a different in pressure too.
There's going to be, which is going to mean the carbonation is going to be a little different, right?
Yeah, it feels. I don't know what it is. That's why I have a huge kegerator in my house. I have 4 different taps on, and that's part of the reason why.
That's so cool.
But
Man,
we should do that test.
a Guinness keg is a very expensive proposition,
Yeah.
but man, is it good.
It's worth it.
I mentioned this, by the way. I was doing a music event, doing an acoustic show for winners with Dave Matthews. And it just turned out, this was when I was in Boston, it just turned out that the sponsor of this series we were doing was Guinness. And I mentioned it to Dave Matthews. I said, hey, Guinness is the sponsor if you want to, mention their name. He goes, Guinness, I love Guinness. He says, you know what I really want? And he's like looking, I really want to get a Guinness tap in my house. I said, stay right here. I went and got the Guinness guy. Sure enough, a month later, Guinness put a tap, a working Guinness tap in Dave Matthews' house in Washington State or wherever.
I
it is
just
he
did
lives.
that for Jason Momoa in L.A. The actor. He
that's cool.
he did the same exact thing. He was like, and he promotes us a lot, and it's really good for us. It's 100% organic advertising. So. But he super cool guy and just wanted a tap for all of his people.
He got a tap for Aquaman. I'm geeking out big time. I'm geeking out. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back. Drinking news is coming up next. Plus, we have some rum to taste, and I've been sitting here looking at the bottle, going,
I'm excited.
So we'll be right back with drinking news and more on Smoking and Toasting. Guinness, baby. Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting. We are the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And we are absolutely thrilled to have David Schroeder with Guinness with us today. And I didn't realize until you mentioned it that you also used to work at Independence Brewing, which that's just a great little craft brewery in Austin.
They make amazing beer, yeah.
They really
and
do.
they've blown up since I worked there too.
Yeah, there's so many good. We have a tendency almost to downplay the Austin breweries because we get a little jealous at how much more attention they seem to get than the beer scene here in Houston, which we think is actually better.
I think the food scene is definitely better here.
Yeah.
And the beer, it's just different, isn't it? It's just
But there's everything in Houston. Like Austin, and I'm really not bagging. I love so many of the great breweries in Austin, but it feels to me like Austin's breweries are more similar to each other, whereas with Houston, I mean, look how different and varied the styles are.
When I talk about Houston breweries, there are certain breweries that go for certain styles.
Right, you got Klaus, which is doing the German style,
all German style
Yeah,
beers.
you got,
you got Spindle Tap if you want hazy IPA.
right.
If you want outrageous, you got Ingenious.
Right,
and
then you've got like St. Arnold, which does the coolest
seasonals are just
in
so
the
good.
world. They're so good. Springbok is out, by the way.
No, Springbok is gone.
I know where I can get you some. You want some?
Yes.
There's still some.
Man,
there's still
I had to
some-
hunt down a keg of it for my sister's wedding
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago.
Well, there's still some
and it
down-
was all sold out. I found like one keg.
Still some downstairs from me at Phoenicia, so I'll
nice.
get you a 6-pack, buddy. Yeah, remember who your friends are. Yeah, remember who your friends are. All right, my friends, it is time now for a segment of the program that has inexplicably become one of the most popular things on Smoking and Toasting, although I guess probably there wasn't a lot of competition for that. But in any case, it has become the most talked about and most sought-after segment on the entire program. It is something that we always try to emphasize is not... Sometimes it is, but not necessarily always stories about drinking.
And much like a classic rock band that has only one good hit, we bury this somewhere towards the end, but not at the very end, so you can't just skip to it.
Yeah, it's like Golden Earring put Twilight Zone the second to last track on
second
side
or
2.
third to last.
Exactly. No, but drinking news is sometimes not always stories about drinking, but they are always stories that are best enjoyed when you've been drinking.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take my gator to the vet.
drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. Well, I'm pretty sure we've shared a story like this with you before here on Drinking News, but just in case, here is a recap. One of the hottest viral videos on the web last year was taken at a liquor store in India, where a thirsty little monkey entered a store in Madhya Pradesh in central India and helped himself to a bottle of his favorite booze. If you search Monkey Liquor Store on YouTube, you'll get quite a kick out of watching this little guy enjoying his own bit of day drinking. In the video, the macaque, which is not only fun to say, but is a species of monkey that inhabits ranges throughout Asia, North Africa, and Gibraltar. This macaque is shown adeptly unscrewing the top of the bottle using his teeth and his hands, at which point the frustrated shop owner attempts to lure the freeloader away with a cookie. Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love cookies. In fact, it's Girl Scout cookie season here in the U.S., and I will admit I have more than indulged in the peanut butter patties, the Thin Mints, and those wonderful ones they call lemonades. But let's be clear. If I'm given the choice between one of those, or even a tasty Chips Ahoy or a double-stuffed Oreo, or a nice bottle of Reserva de la Familia tequila or a Balvenie Doublewood, I'm taking the hooch every time. So it's no surprise that the little Indian monkey was undeterred by the offer of a snack and instead kept right on swigging down the liquor. I'm sure Adam's got the photo up by now. Even using his foot to help balance the bottle, which I will admit is not a drinking skill that I have been able to develop. If my foot gets involved during the night of drinking, it's probably not going to be pretty, although it might make for a good story here on Drinking News. What's particularly interesting, though, about this story is that it shines a light on what could be the reason, or at least one of the reasons, that we, as humans, drink. Now, I'll admit, I've always had plenty of reasons to drink. I drank at the wedding where I married my ex-wife. I drank even more once we were married, if only to numb the pain. I drank when we got divorced in a celebration of happiness. And now I drink with Mary, who's my wife now, because, quite frankly, we just enjoy it. But according to something called the drunken monkey hypothesis, and this is a real thing, I'm not making this up, the drunken monkey hypothesis was posited by UC Berkeley biologist Robert Dudley. The theory is that monkeys may be somewhat responsible through biological evolution for why we like to drink. The theory suggests that monkeys discovered that the smell of alcohol could lead them to ripe, fermenting, and nutritious fruits. And a new study by a primatologist named Christina Campbell of California State University Northridge has taken that even further. They've collected and analyzed fruit that was eaten and then discarded by black-handed spider monkeys in Panama. So the study reveals a concentration of alcohol in the monkey's favorite fruit because it's fermented. And it suggests that monkeys were drawn to it because their bodies actually use it for energy. And it supports the drunken monkey hypothesis that our own proclivity to consume alcohol comes from a deep-rooted affinity from fruit-eating primates and naturally occurring ethanol within the ripe fruit. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, alcohol doesn't necessarily give me energy. Well, I'd encourage you to remember anytime you'd ever seriously considered dancing on a bar, or in my case, dancing anywhere at all, or anytime you've ever uttered this phrase to one of your buddies, hold my beer and watch this. The fact is that alcohol has calories. Calories supply energy. This goes a long way to explain the actions of somebody like Nicolas Cage and probably explains those leopard pants that he was wearing when they had to throw him out of that restaurant and bar in Vegas that time. But the point is, the next time you're enjoying your favorite whiskey, or a nice frosty glass of Ghost in the Machine, remember to thank your monkey ancestors, or Curious George, or that monkey named Bear from the unfortunately named late 70s TV show BJ and the Bear, for your inherited enjoyment of the sweet nectar. And if you don't believe in evolution, then thank God, whose son is rather famous for turning water into wine at weddings. Or thank Muhammad, who, according to the Quran, ascended to heaven on a winged horse. Can't tell me there wasn't some drinking going on there. So whatever your belief system, we can all be happy that monkeys at least share our affinity for a good stiff drink. And by the way, if anybody knows where I can stream or buy a DVD set of Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp, please let me know. I love to binge watch a good monkey series with a tasty glass of Guinness anytime I can. And that, my friends, is a recipe for happiness. Reporting live from the monkey habitat at the Houston Zoo in Herman Park, my name is Cruze, and that is your
Drinking news, drinking news. That's our time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all.
To the drunken monkey.
The Drunken Monkey. That Drunken Monkey would be a great name for a bar, wouldn't it?
This is a drunken monkey.
The Drunken Monkey.
So what was the one on the Family Guy? The drunken clam.
Oh, the Drunken Clam.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was good too. That's a very New Englandy drunken thing. But yes, I will tell you though, I love TV shows with monkeys in them. Have you ever seen? And I'm not kidding. Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp. It's like a whole series where every actor is a monkey, and they dress him up in human clothes. And one of them is Lancelot Link, and he's like a spy. He's a monkey spy. You can't make that stuff up. I was convinced, actually, for many years that monkeys were a part of a secret government program.
I want this noticed. I brought this rum with me. Mm-hmm. And I just want it noted that I not only cleared the cellophane off here so no one cut their finger on it or anything, but I also cleared the top layer of rum off of this bottle so
This
that
is
we
good because
could avoid spillage.
yes, this is very important. It's
Better
something
safe than sorry.
Something we believe in.
This
very,
is not the
very highly
80s.
here.
Safety
Yeah.
has been invented.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So, wouldn't it be great if we could get monkeys to do this show?
What? Wait a minute.
That'd be awesome. Have a monkey like join us in like a blind taste test.
This
That'd
smells so
be awesome.
good.
Now you obviously have had
Spoiler
this rum
alert.
before. I'm very excited about it.
I may have had this before.
Yes.
Obviously not a ton of it because I didn't drink a ton out of the bottle.
Yeah, well, and you
It has a little on the bottom by accident there.
you have talked about though the fact that you were not necessarily a big rum guy before we started doing this show,
I was not.
and you
You know,
like
I'm gonna blame my dad on that. My dad really liked rum, and he really liked any rum. And if it came in a
when you say any rum,
when it came in a plastic bottle with a ship and a sail on it, it was just fine for him.
yeah.
And he liked better rum too, but he liked any rum. And and so my early thoughts of rum are just they were not good rum.
I am loving this on the nose already. I can tell you that.
It's interesting.
I've got like molasses and ripe fruit.
So
If this tastes as good as it
Mocambo,
smells, it's going to be awesome.
this is the art edition. I don't know if that has to do with the rum inside or just the bottle, which is
It's the
really
bottle.
wild looking.
My understanding, by the way, is that every bottle of Mocambo rum that has this sort of stringy stuff on the outside, that they're all unique.
right,
they're all
I think
different from each other.
Yeah, because you can't make that uniform, right?
And I'm pretty sure I see Spider-Man in the front of that.
So this is the single barrel Mocambo art edition, 20 years it says.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that something from them in here blended is at least 20 years old. This is bottle 192 out of 230, barrel number 432.
And they're from Mocambo is from Mexico, I understand.
Yes, this is from Veracruz, Mexico.
Ian, I love this.
Each bottle is a unique form of artwork made by the Mexican artist Victor Fernandez Limon. This product has been carefully selected by professional connoisseurs, kind and extra fine.
And it's this is great. This is one of the best rums I've had in a while.
It says, The Coors Veracruz, with his innovative tradition, has created this exclusive art edition rum in honor of the old Mexican pre-Columbian techniques. It really is a striking bottle that's been on my shelf for a little bit. I haven't tasted it in a while, so I'm interested. You seem to like it.
Love it. Absolutely
It's
love
really
it.
tasty.
It's got such a full, robust,
Yeah, it does
aged
that.
taste to
It's
it.
a dark flavor too. It's a dark
Yes,
fruity
it is.
flavor.
Dark fruits, almost like a dark, like brown sugar, molasses kind of a vibe to it.
Doesn't
But-
finish sweet though.
But no, it does not. Not at all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You
it's-
think it's gonna be? You think it's gonna linger based on how
Right.
full flavor, and then it's just gone.
yeah, right. It's a
I
very dry
think
finish.
my brother-in-law Tyler gave us this. It came in actually a wooden
Wooden
a
slat
wooden
box.
box with
Yeah.
a little slide that comes off the top.
I dig it.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
I may have a bottle of this in my future. This is good.
Yeah. This it's such an interesting flavor too. It's not what you expect.
And let me
rum.
see the bottle real quick. See what I'm talking about here? Spider-Man. Look, there's his head. There's his spider eyes. I'm telling you, it's Spider-Man.
I'll never be able to unsee that.
No,
I
you
hate
won't.
you.
This is apparently won some awards here. It looks like, or they've made it look that way. It's Select Barrel Ultra Premium. Oh man, this is wonderful.
Look how it's amazing how oily this is too, and the finish is so dry on top of that.
And they actually, as you said, what bottle number and what barrel number are inscribed on the side. That is wonderful, Ian. Really wonderful stuff. I'm very impressed. Your brother-in-law got you this?
Yeah, I think he got us. I think he got us that for Christmas, or maybe it was my birthday. I can't remember exactly. It's real good.
Yeah.
He's such a fun character. He's always looking for different stuff, like
Yeah.
whether it's for him to do stuff or whether it's like food wise or whatever. Him and my wife, his sister, love to just go out and try random different foods and things like that. They have such a good time doing it. But he's interesting because he will just look for something just way out of normal and try that. So it's a lot of fun.
He got you a good bottle here. That is just I'm so excited about it. I love it. I'm gonna have to get some of that for myself. So I really have enjoyed today's show, and I know we got our wrap up segment still to come, but this has been a lot of fun going through these Guinness styles in the same sitting. In the same setting, really allowed me to kind of compare them. I've had all three of these before, but I've never had them next to each other. So it was really interesting doing a kind of a parallel tasting here to be able to see what the difference is between them. And interestingly enough, like I said, I love the foreign extra stout. The extra stout is great. I almost feel like the Guinness Draft is my favorite, but I think it's a nostalgia thing, you know?
Well, and you see those connections in your brain that'll get forged after doing with food has been on my mind lately a lot. So each of these there's some dish that like I've had you have it the first time, you're like, this is really good. Like Szechuan Chinese with extra stout. I don't know why it works. But it does.
It just does.
It does. And now you do it once, you're like, this is really good. And so you do it again. You keep doing it, and then you can't have one without the other. And so foreign extra stout, bittersweet chocolate, Guinness Draft with pizza. I don't know why. Red sauce, tomato sauce, like pizza, like a marinara
I
with
can see
meatballs.
that.
It
Yeah.
just
Totally,
works.
Totally.
But I think that's what's fun about it is each of these is a little bit different. If I was in the mood for, if I was smoking, honestly, if I was smoking my pipe, then I would probably go for foreign extra stout because I tend to any type of smoking tends to like really kind of neutralize my palate. And so if I want to have a beer that I can taste, I need something that's a little bit bigger, more robust. So I go for the foreign extra stout. But each one's a little bit different of an occasion.
Talk to me about some of these specialty beers that are coming out of your brewery in Baltimore. Are you making enough of these that we can find them in our local retail shops? And if so, what should we look for?
We're not making a lot of them. The ones that I would just look for around November, December, if you see a 4-pack in your specs, Total Wine, Twin Liquors.
We had a bourbon barrel aged one last season.
There's always going to
And
be
it was
one in that
like
category.
$22 for a 4-pack or something like that. It was outlandishly expensive. It was fantastic.
And I will tell you, we don't make a lot of money on that beer.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, it was fantastic.
We've talked about one of the beers we've had recently that we absolutely loved, which was Odd-Sized
Hazel's Nuts. Oh, my gosh.
It was so fantastic, and we can find it here locally.
Yeah,
and
$25 or $26.
It's $25, $26, and it's just 12-ounce cans. It's 4 of them.
Yeah.
And it's worth every penny.
But it's worth every penny. And so that's how you felt about the Guinness.
Yeah, it was
bourbon
it was one of the open gate ones, and it was a barrel aged Guinness. Was fantastic. I love a lot of the stuff the open gate brewers do. As a matter of fact, my wife saw that there was a zero alcohol Guinness.
That's coming from Dublin, not the
Oh, is
Open
it?
Gate.
Okay.
But yeah, so Open Gate, like I'll have semi-regular calls with the brewers where they'll ship me out some stuff that they're. If you're ever in Maryland or near Maryland, going to the brewery is one of the coolest things you can do because there's always something new on the tap. I taste what they're putting out of their. They did like a cream ale with black tea and lactose recently that blew my mind. I was like, this is the best cream ale I've maybe ever had. So they're really good brewers that we hired and found, and they're constantly putting out good stuff. The 2 new innovations that you might have seen on the shelf recently actually didn't come from Maryland because they both use nitrogenation technology, and they like to keep that close to the mothership. And that's the nitro coffee, which I should have brought here.
I've had
good
that, yeah.
taste. It's pretty good. And then the zero alcohol, I was not stoked about, and long story short, I had a health scare, and I was like, I actually might have to not drink beer for a while. And that was really sad for me because my career in life has been built on beer for a long time. And so I started to think about what would I do if I couldn't, what do you do when you have fajitas? What are you going to drink with that? Like water? It's just like it just doesn't
do amazingly, but yes, I know.
It's crazy. So Guinness Zero, I have a new respect for it. And not only that, if we were to do a tasting, I would honestly I know I could tell the difference between a can and a can of Guinness and a tap Guinness and a Guinness Zero, but I'd be more interested to do that blind tasting at New Potato because I'd love to see how other people do it. And
very interesting, yeah.
So we did at the house because I bought a 4-pack of the Guinness Zero. I think it was a 4-pack or it was a 6-pack. I can't remember. And I bought the draft stout. And me and my wife did a blind taste test for each other.
Nice.
And
could you tell?
Yeah, so I actually picked the right one. She actually picked the right one, but neither one of us was even remotely disappointed in the flavor of the Zero.
Well, here's the thing.
I was amazed by it.
And brewers need to understand this. The zero alcohol trend is not going away. Mm-mm. It's going to be around with us for a while. And if you can figure out how to make your zero alcohol beer taste good, you're going to do very well.
Yeah. Here's another funny one for calorie counters out there. Mm-hmm. Your Guinness draft at 12 ounces, pardon me, is 125 calories.
That is amazing.
It's 25 calories more than most of your I'm counting calories beer.
Right.
That's because
amazing.
of that dryness. That's where the calories come from is the alcohol and the sugar. The residual sugar. So
well, it has been fun. We have been overdue for a Guinness themed show.
Yeah, I was so excited to get this going on.
I loved being here. It was so much fun. Thank you guys for having me.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back with our goodbye segment, but want to just say to everybody who's been with us for all of this time, thank you so much, and we will try to reward you with more stories about monkeys. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 278. It is always time for Guinness, and we definitely want to thank David Schroeder from Guinness for being with us. By the way, by not showing up for our actual on St. Patrick's Day show, you missed out on the Irish whiskey blind taste test, which was a lot of fun.
What was the favorite?
Do you remember what the
Man, we
all I
had
remember is that Slane did remarkably
Slane
well.
did well.
And it was one of the least expensive whiskeys. And what was it was
Tullamore Dew did well.
yeah, Tullamore Dew.
Tully's
We had
good.
the Tullamore Dew we had was a single malt.
Yeah, that was
but
the single malt one.
It
That
did
one
very
did
well.
yeah.
And I'll have to go back
Oddly
and
enough,
listen
that
to the show.
Powers I brought, we were not all
We
that
thought it was
jazzed
going to
about.
be a big deal, and it was it was a little less, but it was that was a fun show.
There was a Redbreast was the other one. I think that did- Redbreast did real
Redbreast
well.
and Green Dot.
And Green Dot, yeah.
Green
Those are
Dot,
both really
I think
nice.
Green Dot may have been the number one.
Yeah, it was the Redbreast 12, and then the Green Dot, I think, did the best
Yeah,
out of it.
yeah.
Slane got
And Slane was like third,
kind of right under that.
but
yeah.
but at a remarkably lower price than
Nice
either of
value.
those two. So
Yeah.
Cool.
yeah, so fun stuff. But anyway, if you're ever
See what you made us do by not showing up.
Right. and by the way, I want to stress he did not do a yellow rose on us. He told us he couldn't be here on that day. He didn't just tell us he was going to be there and then not show up.
I think it was actually
Twice.
on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, it was
Yes, it
actually
was.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
bet you're busy on that day.
It was worth a try, right?
Yeah, no, we both talked about it. We're like, I bet they're busy, but we're gonna ask.
Yeah, right.
I was here the week before. I couldn't be here the day of, but
Yeah.
next year possibly.
Yeah. Well, we do appreciate you coming in today and bringing
awesome.
all this goodness. Next week on Smoking and Toasting, we welcome back one of our bestest buddies. Our Smoking and Toasting wine expert, Mark Burrell, will be on the program.
Awesome.
And he is always a lot of fun.
I feel like we
And,
hadn't seen him in a long time.
well,
He was scheduled and then he had to
Right,
cancel.
he
for
had to
some reason.
cancel because of some things going on at the restaurant. We were going to have him on right before Valentine's Day to do wines for Valentine's Day. So now I think we'll shift and
Have
talk
you eaten at the Rainbow
wines.
Lodge?
Oh
No.
my goodness! Oh my goodness! Yeah.
I want
Yes, go to the Rainbow Lodge.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely wonderful.
And Mark Burrell's the sommelier there.
And he's just he knows
He's
more about wine
fantastic.
than anybody I think I've ever met. And I know some wine guys. So
Cool looking place.
but
Yeah, it's
oh,
great, man. If it's a nice
Absolutely
day
great.
like this, go sit on the back patio.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's
Is it new?
It's like no, it's
No,
been
it's
around
been
for a
there
long time.
years.
Yeah, okay,
and
cool.
and their back patio is not just like a little backyard. It's like
see it, yeah.
it's like you've gone
Amazing.
completely into nature back there. It's
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
and it's a beautiful, like, romantic setting. If you go there by yourself, you will actually be romantic with yourself.
And then mark your
Which
calendars.
is okay. Just put us on in the background.
This
you got
is-
the total romance package going
This
on.
is an awesome year because on Thursdays, the day that we do the show, not only was St. Patrick's Day on a Thursday this
Yeah.
year, guess what else is on a Thursday?
4th of July?
Little thing called Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, Cinco de Mayo.
And Liliana Rodriguez, our resident tequila expert, will join us.
We're
once
getting her
again
on Cinco de Mayo?
On Cinco de Mayo.
Yes.
How much fun is that going to be? So mark your calendars for that, my friends. We want to say a big thank you to you, David, for coming in and teaching us about Guinness. You were going to answer, I thought, one of our questions that we had.
Oh,
on
yeah.
the chat,
So
right?
Michael asked about
Before
the
we go.
snake bite and
Oh
thoughts
yeah,
on that.
yeah.
So the half and half is it's kind of one of those things that you can do with Guinness because of not only the nitrogenation but also because of the dryness. So when you think about oil and water and why they separate and don't like to mix, it's
But
because
that's like a black and
Because there's
tan,
a
right?
difference in viscosity.
a difference
right?
in
Yeah.
viscosity. Exactly. I like to point that out because there are variations of layering half and half, and you can start to experiment. But when something doesn't layer, give that nice, very different color on bottom, very dark color on top, then it's probably because their viscosity is too similar.
Right, so they just blend.
For instance, you could get a very sweet Prosecco and Guinness will sit right on top of it, and then you could get a very dry champagne and you'd need to flip it. And they would separate the difference because that it's all about sugar level. So I say all that to say you can do it half and half with anything. Some things separate better than others. Usually when Guinness is a dry beer, so once something is a lot sweeter, it tends to separate more dramatically. So ciders tend to be sweeter until you get something like Austin East ciders, which tends to be a drier
Very
one,
dry,
or
yeah.
Magners. So a snake bite. Now I should caution you: if you go to Ireland and order any half and half, or God help you if you order what they call an Irish car bomb, they will not be happy with you. I wouldn't recommend going there. They won't do half and half. It's just not a thing there. If you go to England and order a snake bite, that will be a lager and a cider mixed together. So there's all these regional variations. A snake bite in the United States tends to be Guinness on top of a cider. A sweeter one like a Crispin or an Angry Orchard usually separates a little bit better. Black and tan, again, don't order in Ireland because there's some history there, but a black and tan like with a Smittix or a Harp on bottom and Guinness on top. What you're doing in all of these is kind of a difference, especially with my favorite is a Black Velvet. I think that's my favorite mixture that's bubbly wine and Guinness because you get that kind of contrast.
And a sultry tune.
Yeah, it's kind of a contrast to Guinness's velvety silkiness, that bubbles that kind of cuts through. But there's all different combinations you can do, and it's just one of the weird kind of, outposts of Guinness possibilities because of this weird kind of beer that we make and like.
Hey, let's back up to the Irish car bomb. That's a crap drink. Like whoever invented that, that's a terrible drink.
All right, but I can't dog the black and tan though.
I can't dog the black and tan, but the Irish car bomb is a crap drink.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Drink whiskey, drink beer.
Yeah.
Whiskey inside beer, you're kind of ruining both.
Drink whiskey and then chase it with a beer.
So earlier you guys were talking about how, people say, oh, I haven't. When was the last time you had a Guinness is my number one question when people say I can't drink Guinness, like you guys said. And a lot of times it's people, I'll say, was it on your 20th birthday around St. Patrick's Day, and was it in the presence of Bailey's and Jameson? And that's not Guinness. That's not the same.
That's not what it does.
That's not what it's about.
So yeah, I mean, it is an interesting situation because we don't tell people to do it, especially if you go to Ireland. A lot of Americans are embarrassed annually because an Irish bartender will happily call you out for using that name. So we don't endorse it or tell anybody to use it. On the other hand, I have to admit it's a name that people tend to. It's been around for decades. I don't think it's going anywhere, and there's a lot of there's a lot of them that get sold in the United States every single year. So I don't think they're going away anytime soon, but yeah, we tell. But there's a better name for them, a drop shot or something like that. It's not quite as sticky as the name that most people know, but a little bit more respectful of Irish history. So,
final question. Ian's shirt, his Guinness shirt with the toucans flying, is a variation on an old Guinness advertising thing, which was the toucan bird with the pint of Guinness on the beak. Is there any significance to that, or was it just a cool picture somebody drew?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the significance right there.
All right.
So I mean, it's classic 1950s advertising. John Gilroy was the artist, illustrator that came up with it. The copy at the time was Guinness is good for you, which we don't say anymore because you can't make any health claims.
Yeah.
But it was actually a whole zoo kind of series. And there's one with ostriches, and we put them even on our cans sometimes.
I've seen the one with the ostrich with the pint
in the neck.
Yeah.
People love them. I mean, there was a Friends episode. There was a part of the time of Friends in the apartment. They had a Gilroy Guinness advertisement, and I'm like, whatever set decorator is responsible for that has got to be responsible for a certain amount of cases of Guinness sold because it's just embedded in people's subconscious, and people recognize that art. The toucans is definitely the one that took off the most.
I thought maybe it was something to do with 2 cans and 2 beers, but
no, it is. They embraced that, but it was actually just the zoo. They had all these different. They had hippo, ostrich, toucans, and the toucan for some reason took off.
Love it.
And now we have it on shirts, and people love to see it. So,
well, thank you so much for coming in and being a part of the show today, and we want to extend an invitation to you to come back anytime you like. And also, you'll be getting an invitation to our 200/300th episode So maybe you can come back for that.
And the pipe show.
And the
be there.
pipe
And
show.
the pipe show.
Yes,
Yes.
in fact, we'll reach out to you once we get the pipe show scheduled. We will reach out to you for that and invite you to come down for that because that'll be a lot of fun. Thanks to Adam on the Wheels of Steel, who is going to be with us for a few more weeks, and thanks to Mary for putting all the booking together. Thanks to you for being a part of Smoking and Toasting every week. We'll see you back here next week for a wine-centric episode with our favorite wine specialist and expert, Mr. Mark Burrell. Have a great week, my friends, and cheers, y'all.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
That was fun.